What are we listening to? What are we looking at to?
You are looking at me,
yes.
my man.
And behind you some FoundTapes pictures.
Yes, what you see is all sorts of things that are related to something that I have been doing and try to continue to do, but it is very difficult since 2002, which is to pick up all the bits and pieces of thrown away magnetic audio tape that I find in the street whenever I pass.
Yeah.
And that was something which in the time of the cassette Walkman and people driving in their cars with cassette players listening to music was something which was part of our cityscape. Because these cassette tapes, they got stuck in your Walkman or in your cassette player, in your car. The thing got stuck. Suddenly you were driving and then suddenly the music stops.
Yeah.
And you say, what the heck? And then you start pulling at this bit of plastic and you take it out and this whole string of tape that comes out. And what do you do when you're driving?
Yeah.
You open the window and you throw it out.
Yeah.
So what we saw with the advent of the cassette tape and the use as personal stereo, as personal music thing pre-iPod was this mess of tape that got thrown into the streets and got mixed up in fences, in trees, in whatever, in the gutter and so on. So our streets were littered. With magnetic audio tape, and what I did was picking it up. I just pick up all these pieces, all these bunches and nuts, and so all sorts of horrible things.
It became like a private collection of found objects.
A private collection of found sounds.
Found sound.
And then it's of course a horrible job. It's a dirty job. You have to untie all these bits and pieces of tape, which is what I did, and then I just put them back together. I wind it back into a cassette, and then I listened to what was on these tapes.
And how do you use those found tapes in your performances or your compositions?
In principle, I do not use them.
No.
It happens, but not. In principle, not, because it's just a collection.
Okay.
It's like an audio diary.
It's a separate project. Yeah.
It's like a travelogue, because it shows where I was, where I've been. And I also have a Google Maps interface, so you see, for instance, at some point in time between 2003 and 2005, I was teaching at some university in Paris, and I went there very often. If you look at the map, then you see that it is littered with tapes that I found. So the whole bunch, you see the way that I was walking from the metro station to the faculty and back again. There's all these tapes
And on your website, people can hear to listen to those tapes.
Tapes that were
so it's
found.
like
It's chronological from the very first one.
It's like a museum or archaeology of found sounds.
Yes.
Which is going out since years.
Somebody called it at some point, I think it was in The Wire, it's the siren song of decayed media. Decaying media.
Yeah.
So what interested me in the beginning was the fact that these tapes that had been out in the open, that were lying in the streets and that were sometimes in the streets there were cars passing on and so on, and it stayed there. All these things that were messed up in fences or whatever, nobody took them out. I mean, it stayed there. So it was for months and months that it was in the rain and the wind and so on. So the sound degraded a lot. So there's a very strange texture to the sound.
And you're interested by this degradation
by the degradation,
which is
also
opposed to the digital system.
Yes, of course, because digital media don't degrade. They just work or they do not work. Or you can have glitches and see things, but it's very specific. It's not this gradual degradation where there's noises that enter and so on. What also is very interesting about magnetic tape is that even when most of the magnetic emulsion is no longer there, you can still hear it. I have found tapes that were almost transparent, and there's little brown islands.
A noise memory, so
there's
to speak.
Always a sort of memory that stays.
So what's the next project for the FoundTapes exhibition?
No, it just goes on. The only problem is that you do not find any tapes anymore because people do not listen anymore to. There's very few. There are a few people that still have car cassette players.
So
there's nobody anymore listening to Walkmans. Sometimes I see
So someday it's going to stop because of the loss of the media.
They are no longer in the streets.
Yeah.
It's something that many people notice, but most people never saw. But all these tapes that were everywhere, they're no longer there. Because I have a sort of how do you say that, sixth sense for
to find them.
If there is one, I see them. I hardly see them anymore.
So you must be happy here, but you cannot steal them. Thank you.